Imagine a tiny force of just 300 warriors standing against an army of over 200,000. This isn't a fantasy epic. This is the real story of the Battle of Thermopylae, a clash that would echo through eternity. In 480 BC, the fate of Western civilization hung by a thread, held by the spear points of 300 Spartans, led by their king, Leonidas. This is how they humiliated the largest army ever assembled, and became legends. Our story begins with the Persian king, Xerxes I. He was a man consumed by a singular obsession: revenge. A decade earlier, his father Darius had been defeated by the Greeks at the Battle of Marathon. Xerxes spent 10 years meticulously planning his retribution. He wasn't just coming for a fight, he was coming to erase Greece from the map. He amassed an army of unprecedented size, so vast that ancient historians claimed it drank rivers dry. To move this colossal force, he even ordered a canal to be dug and 2 massive pontoon bridges built across the Hellespont Strait. His message was clear: resistance is futile. Back in Greece, the city-states were in a panic. Many considered surrendering to the overwhelming Persian might, but not Sparta. In Sparta, warfare was a way of life, and surrender was not in their vocabulary. Their king, Leonidas, was a hardened veteran, the very embodiment of Spartan discipline and courage. When the call to arms came, however, there was a problem. A religious festival, the Carnia, was underway, during which warfare was forbidden. But Leonidas knew that if they did nothing, there would be no Sparta left to celebrate. Defying tradition, he made a fateful decision. He couldn't take the whole army, but he could take his personal bodyguard of 300 men. But these weren't just any 300. Leonidas handpicked each man based on one crucial criterion: they all had to have living sons. He wasn't choosing them to survive, he was choosing them to die a glorious death, ensuring their family lines would continue. This wasn't a mission of victory, it was a mission of sacrifice. Along the way, they were joined by a few thousand other Greeks, including 700 brave Thespians, but the core of the defense, the steel spine, was the 300. Their destination was a narrow coastal pass called Thermopylae, which means the hot gates. It was a strategic masterstroke. The pass was so tight, flanked by a steep hillside on one side, and the sea on the other, that the Persians' overwhelming numbers would count for nothing. 1,000,000 men could not fight 1,000, if only a few could pass at a time. Leonidas had turned the battlefield into a bottleneck, a meat grinder. The hot gates were about to become a killing floor. When Xerxes arrived, he couldn't believe his eyes. This tiny, insignificant force was blocking his path. He laughed. He thought it was a joke. For 4 days, he waited, sending messengers demanding their surrender. Leonidas's famous reply, "Milan Labe, come and get them," has become a timeless symbol of defiance. Xerxes, his patience exhausted, finally gave the order to attack. The first wave of Persian soldiers, the Medes, charged into the narrow pass. They were met by a wall of bronze shields and a forest of long spears. The Spartans, with their superior armor, training, and discipline, were untouchable. They fought in a formation called the phalanx, an interlocking wall of shields and death. The Persians, with their wicker shields and shorter spears, were butchered. They fell in heaps, their bodies clogging the pass, making it even harder for those behind them to advance. The Spartans were masters of warfare. They would even feign retreat, luring the Persians into a disorganized charge, only to turn and slaughter them in an instant. Xerxes watched from his throne on a nearby hill, and it said he leaped to his feet in terror and frustration 3 times as he saw his troops being decimated. The first day ended in a bloody Persian failure. The second day, Xerxes sent in his best troops, his personal bodyguard, the legendary 10,000 immortals. They were called immortals because their number was always kept at exactly 10,000. Any man killed was immediately replaced. But at Thermopylae, they died just like everyone else. The Spartans and their allies held the line, inflicting horrific casualties. The morale of the Persian army was collapsing. 2 days of fighting, and they hadn't gained an inch. It seemed the tiny Greek force was invincible. But every great story has its tragedy. A local Greek named Ephialtes, a name that would become synonymous with traitor in Greece, saw an opportunity for wealth and reward. He went to Xerxes and told him of a secret mountain path that could be used to bypass the Greek position and attack them from the rear. The game was up. Scouts soon reported the devastating news to Leonidas. They were about to be surrounded. His mission was now complete. He had held the Persians for long enough. buying precious time for the rest of Greece to prepare its defenses. He had shattered the myth of Persian invincibility and shown that they could be beaten. Now, facing certain death, he gave his final order. He honorably dismissed the majority of the allied Greek forces, telling them to retreat and fight another day. But he and his 300 Spartans would stay. They were bound by Spartan law: never retreat, never surrender. To their eternal credit, the 700 Thespians chose to stay with them, sharing their fate. On the third day, knowing the end was near, the Greeks fought with a fury born of desperation. They no longer held the narrowest part of the pass, but advanced into the open to kill as many Persians as they could before they fell. They fought with spears until their spears shattered. They fought with swords until their swords broke. They fought with their bare hands and teeth. Leonidas fell in the heart of the battle, and a vicious fight erupted over his body, with the Spartans driving the enemy back 4 times to retrieve their king. Finally, driven back to a small hill, the last of the heroes made their final stand. Surrounded and with no escape, they were finished off by a storm of arrows. Xerxes had his victory, but at what cost? He had lost an estimated 20,000 men, including 2 of his own brothers. The humiliation was immense. His elite forces had been crushed, and his army's morale was broken. The sacrifice of Leonidas and his men was not in vain. Their heroic stand united the fractured Greek city-states like never before. Inspired by their courage, the Greek fleet later crushed the Persians at the Battle of Salamis, and the following year the Greek army, led by Spartans, annihilated the remaining Persian forces at the Battle of Plataea, ending the invasion for good. The story of the 300 is more than just a battle. It is a testament to the power of courage against overwhelming odds, a symbol of freedom against tyranny. It's a story that has inspired generations of soldiers, leaders, and ordinary people for 2.5 millennia. The stand at Thermopylae reminds us that sometimes true victory isn't about winning the battle, but about fighting for what you believe in, no matter the cost. Thank you for watching. If you found this story as inspiring as we do, please hit that like button and subscribe for more epic tales from history. We'll see you in the next one.